Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
All right, so the Democrats had some pretty clean wins on Election Day on Tuesday. Pretty much a clean sweep for some governorships. Obviously, the mayorship of New York City, which is now held by Zohran Mamdani. Also, Prop 50 in California passed. Unfortunately, the Democratic Socialist candidate in the Minneapolis mayor's race did not win. Omar Fateh lost to Jacob Frey, who is still a Democrat, that the progressive wing of the party attempted to unite against. That strategy did not work. And the political situation has changed palpably because of that. The Democrats have reasserted some leverage, as well as the dynamic in the Democratic Party becoming more clear in terms of who is dominating the narrative going forward and the messaging. Seems pretty clear to me that Zohran Mamdani is emerging as the leader of the party at this moment, at least in terms of messaging. And you also have people like Bernie Sanders who are just doing a better job at that. So while that wasn't the only type of win that happened on election night, it is something that's coming to characterize the Democratic Party going forward. They're probably going to have no choice but to embrace that. So here's an example of that, where Bernie Sanders happened to be present at a press conference that Chuck Schumer was holding about the government shutdown, one of the major factors in how people are perceiving the government right now. And Bernie Sanders hopped on stage and gave his own little press conference. He was invited on by the press pool there because Chuck Schumer was late, didn't show up on time. So Bernie Sanders took the stage and took some questions. So here's Bernie Sanders on the government shutdown.
Want to hear him out?
Do you want to tell us what you think about last night? You want to take the podium until he gets here?
Am I invited to take the podium?
I mean, yeah.
That's a good sign. I agree with it.
What are your takeaways from last
My takeaways is there are many reasons why people win an election and lose an election. What happens in Virginia, or New Jersey, and New York City, it's a bit different. But I think there was a common theme last night, and that is people all over this country are rejecting Trumpism. They understand that it is a horrific situation when 20+ million people are going to see a doubling, or in some cases a tripling, in the healthcare premiums when they can't afford it. When 15 million people are going to be thrown off of their healthcare because of massive cuts to Medicaid. And according to studies, and it's important to understand this, I say this all the time, but I really want to get it through to you. Studies indicate when you throw 15 million low-income and working-class people off the health care they have, 50,000 of them will die unnecessarily every year. 50,000 fellow Americans, low-income, working-class people.
Are you at all disappointed that Leader Schumer did not endorse Mamdani?
You ask Senator Schumer then.
Senator, AOC said last night that Mamdani didn't just have to defeat a Republican, he had to defeat the old guard.
Yes.
So a follow-up, is she talking about Schumer? He didn't endorse Mamdani?
Look, here is what, and I want you all to appreciate this. This guy started his campaign at 1% in the polls. I called it one of the great political upsets in the modern history of America, and I think that's really quite true. So who did he take on? He took on oligarchs who put millions and millions of dollars to try to defeat him. Cuomo had all the money that he could use. He took on the President of the United States, who endorsed Mr. Cuomo. He took on the Republican establishment, and of course he took on the Democratic establishment. So what Mamdani did last night was absolutely extraordinary. And the way that he did it was to put together a unbelievable, incredible grassroots effort, 90,000 people volunteering, knocking on doors. So what's the message there? The message is, if you have an agenda that speaks for the working class of this country, if you are prepared to take on the oligarchs, explain to people that it's unacceptable that the very rich become much richer while working families can't even afford groceries or their rent. And if you put together a grassroots movement, you can in fact win. And I think, by the way, people say, well, that's New York City. I don't agree. I think that's... Pardon me?
But is the Democratic leader part of the
Why do you want to create? Look, obviously, you have a Democratic establishment. I ran for president against the Democratic establishment. That's what Mamdani did. It's no great secret. That's what Alexandria did. No great secret. Of course there's an establishment. And of course there's a division within the Democratic Party. There's no secret to anybody here. What are we seeing in Maine? What did you see in New York City? What are you going to see all over this country? You're going to see progressives running, protecting the needs of the working class, taking on big money interests, fighting for an agenda that works for all, not just the few. No great secret there. Yes, ma'am. Let me ask you, the real issue is these oligarchs are so powerful. Right now, you're looking at, Musk and the others investing hundreds of billions of dollars into AI, which in my view will have a devastating impact on the jobs of many millions of Americans. Who's going to stop them? Can we rally the American people to protect American jobs and workers in this country? A lot of issues that are out there, but bottom line is we need to bring people together to stand up to the oligarchs and create an economy that works for all. Yes.
Midterms next year. The party leadership does not embrace this flank of the party.
Well, the party leadership did not support Mamdani in New York, and he won. Party leadership is not supporting Plattner in Maine, and I think he's going to win. So I think it is, I think there is a growing understanding that leadership and defending the status quo and the inequalities that exist in America is not where the American people are. Yes, ma'am. Hold on, one at a time.
Back to health policy, I wanted to make sure I understood your position clearly. If the House gave you a guarantee...
I'm sorry, say it again.
If the House gave you a guarantee, would you be willing to vote on a continuing resolution and tax credits separately, or would they still have to be attached?
If we had a commitment from the Speaker of the House that he was prepared to support a strong extension of ACA credits, and if the President of the United States, and I don't trust him, so you're going to have to figure out how he structured this, was saying that he was prepared to sign it, I think we should end the shutdown tomorrow, if you had that commitment. But if you simply had a nebulous vote that wasn't going to go anyplace, I think we got to continue to fight to protect.
Yeah, so there's Bernie with the usual hits, a couple twists in there. I like what he said about AI, putting a lot of people out of work. It's going to be very important to continue talking about that, especially as Democrats in general continue to avoid the subject of the larger structure of the economy, not just the fact that the economy is bad in some abstract way. And here is Chuck Schumer, once he finally arrived on the scene. Here is what he had to say at this press conference. Just a little clip here to show you guys a bit of a difference in the rhetoric here.
Enough with Donald Trump's astronomical costs and tariffs. Right now, the president's lawyers are defending these awful tariffs in the Supreme Court. And Americans know that tariffs are a tax on them. They hate them. Maybe the Supreme Court will put Donald Trump out of his misery and declare them illegal because they are illegal. But Trump's tariffs have been one of the biggest hikes on American families in recent years. And of course, the election last night wasn't just about tariffs. The American people said enough with Republicans' relentless attacks on health care. As I said, they're getting these health care vouchers, and then there's a knot in their stomachs. How am I going to pay this? Am I going to do without health care when my children get sick? Americans all over the country are just sitting there and wondering what the heck is going on.
Yeah, so there's Chuck Schumer, pretty terrible, looking pretty stiff, doing a bad job generally, but Democrats get to take their little victory lap right now, and that's an important thing to recognize about the moment, is that this was a win for sort of normie Democrats as well. And while the win, like Zoran's, was pretty resounding, and there is some promise in Prop 50 on the West Coast, as well as Pennsylvania retaining Democratic support of the Supreme Court there, all those things are good, but not necessarily all advancements in terms of the Democratic Socialist wing of the party. So Democrats get to take this victory lap without necessarily acknowledging the emerging front line of rhetoric in the party that is actually exciting people. So the Chuck Schumers and the Cory Bookers are going to tout this as a win for Democrats' generalized opposition to Trump, the continuation of the "we're not Trump" strategy. The difference now in terms of the leverage that is held is Democrats have shown that they still have some purchase with the voters, and that purchase might be coming back in force as the midterms come around, as well as the fact that the redistricting effort might not be as simple as they would have wanted it to be, given that Gavin Newsom has done this redistricting effort in California that kind of neutralizes what they're trying to do. It's going to lead to a long, drawn-out fight for redistricting in all different states. Probably most of them are not going to move as quickly about it as California. So we'll see where the dice end up landing on that. So Trump is now recognizing publicly that the shutdown is bad for them. He's also saying that he was supposedly not on the ballot, which is why Republicans did bad, which could very well be true because Republicans do better when Trump is on the ballot. And now, apparently, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are seeking a new meeting with Trump in order to try to end the shutdown. Because they recognize this as a moment where Democrats have leverage. So I don't love that because the situation has not changed from this issue about healthcare, which is going to have a tangible effect on many people's pockets. But with how much else is at stake, it seems like giving up the government shutdown fight right now is kind of a waste of the only momentum that Democrats are going to get to do anything to challenge Trump until the midterms. So I think they should absolutely milk this and force Trump into the position where he has to own the destruction that is coming because of this government shutdown and that people are facing and was already a factor against Trump in this election, let alone just the firings that he's been doing in general. So the reason that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are probably trying to seek an end to the shutdown now or use the leverage that they have now to get the concession they're looking for is because Trump is calling for them to get rid of the filibuster in order to get this through so they can get around the Democrats. That is something that Republicans have the option to do, and it was what the Democrats hesitated to do during Biden's term, although they also could have. And so we'll see if Republicans do end up doing that because of Trump. It's possible that the reason Democrats are seeking that deal now is because they don't want Republicans to resort to that. Republicans don't want to seem to do that either. Neither of these parties want to get rid of that rule because it's a consistent function that protects both of their parties at some point. And Republicans know that if they got rid of it, it would hurt them more than it hurts the Democrats because it benefits them more than it benefits Democrats. And as for internally, I mean, the fight is on for who is going to control the narrative in the Democratic Party. You have the more establishment Democrats still kind of just trying to ignore Zohran Mamdani. Chuck Schumer never offered an endorsement. Jeffries did at the last minute. And clearly he is the one, he's leading the headlines, he leads people's interest, and policy-wise, he's the one who's leading the narrative of the country. And Trump, along with continually calling him a communist and threatening New York City in various ways, has also said, you know, we're going to help him out, and because they want New York City to do well. So he wasn't saying that before Zohran won, but showing some interest in doing that probably just because he wants to try to exercise leverage over Zohran in some way like he always does. So that'll be an interesting challenge to see, and like I said, I think Zohran should be on TV as much as possible when it comes to going against Trump, because that's just where that battle is fought, and there's no position better to fight it from than the New York City mayor. So we'll see where that goes, and there's a couple other interesting things going on. Richie Torres has been challenged in a primary by Michael Blake. DNC Vice Chair Michael Blake is challenging him over his support of Israel and is going to try to knock him out. That is also a New York race in the Bronx. Graham Plattner, the candidate for Senate in Maine, which is a primary, Democratic primary that's happening next year in the summer, rallied his grassroots organization to help knock down Prop 1, which was a voting restriction law that some oligarchs in Maine were trying to get through. And Plattner used the grassroots army that he's building up there, which is still supporting him through all of his controversies, including his suspicious tattoo and some of the other stuff that I've mentioned here. He's still building up an organizing vehicle and putting it to good use as far as that goes. But this is also the kind of organizing vehicle that has been incorporated into the Democratic Party in the past, and, you know, not really ended up achieving any organizing good outside of that. So Graham Plattner continues to be a confusing figure. And, you know, he also was a part of the Socialist Rifle Association, and had some comments about that. And I think had to do with some trainings and stuff in a local Socialist Rifle Association. So, I mean, that honestly makes me like him better. But at the same time, it's hard to know, because as I've gotten into before, I think there's a lot of room for him to have suspicious connections in his background when it comes to, like, you know, these private contractors and stuff. But at the same time, if he's taking meaningful swings in the fight, I think that that's at least worth paying attention to. So we'll keep an eye on that going forward. And these on the ground organizing structures that these candidates like Zoran and Graham Plattner are creating, I think are going to continue to characterize the fight, because it's the only thing that we have to fight them with, is these grassroots organizations, the ability to fundraise, the ability to reach a lot of people. So that's going to continue to be the determining factor in those fights of who has momentum in the Democratic Party versus who has entrenched power. And, you know, I would like to see Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries fully replaced. And, you know, I think it's time for us to start talking about how that happens, what that looks like, and agitating for that specifically. Because even in a moment like this, you know, the instinct to just get on camera and give your own press conference, or even to be at the press conference in the first place and kind of work your way onto the stage like Bernie did, it's the right way to steal the narrative away. And especially as things get more intense in America because of Trump, I think that's the kind of thing that is going to end up leading the way for the party and for people in general, just as what's happening right now. You're seeing an organizing of people that are not just affiliated with the Democratic Party, but rather are coming to share a certain vision of change. And that is, I think, the most promising thread in American politics right now. And our ability to continue building out that coalition is probably what's going to determine the future of the country. Pressure getting pressed, do you feel it now? What even happens next, I don't really know. Voice carries less, can you hear me now? Soon as I get blessed, time's running out. Pressure getting pressed. Pressure getting pressed. Feel the pressure getting pressed. Yeah. Pressure, do you feel it now? I'm just saying this.